Okay, everyone, welcome. Today we're talking about Guru Yoga, outer, inner, and secret Guru Yoga. Um, I suppose as a beginning point, we need to acknowledge that there's many different lineages of this kind of practice. So Guru Yoga is kind of like a uniquely um, Vajrayana and Dzogchen thing. So we don't see it formally as a practice in the Sutrayana or the Mahayana, but we do see devotion very much as a part of the Sutrayana and the Mahayana. It's just not formalized as a practice. But in the Vajrayana and Dzogchen, we see that it is very distinctly uh, a practice, and it has been formalized as a practice in those two traditions. So you may have heard there's a very widely known saying or phrase from the Himalayan region, which is Guru Yoga is the heart of Vajrayana, the heart of the Nyingma, which, in case you don't know, is one of the schools of the Vajrayana, and the heart of Dzogchen. So that phrase is repeated quite a lot, and certainly many great masters have made it very clear that Guru Yoga is both the foundation, which is why we see it in a lot of the preliminary practices, but also it is the highest practice. So, um, as many of you will know, there's in Dzogchen, which is distinct from Vajrayana. Let's not confuse the two. Um, they are quite distinct, approached quite differently. And then within Dzogchen, there's three kinds of cycles of Dzogchen. The earliest, which dates around 650 CE, first revealed by Prahavajra, which these days we call the Semde. And then there's the Long Day, the Space Series, and the Menag Day, the Pith Instructions series. They all emerge a few hundred years after each other. So Semde's original, then we have Long Day a couple hundred years later, and then we have Menag Day a couple of hundred years after that. There is the idea circulating that they all were existing at the time of Prahavajra, and that they were and that the cycles were divided up by Manjushri. There's, however, no textual evidence for that. The textual evidence bears out that what we call the Semde teachings, the Semde texts, they were all in existence and widely circulated by the 10th century. We know that because of what was found in the Dunhuang caves, these texts that were dating around 900s. And that cave was sealed up around then. And so we see that there are Semde texts there, but no Long Day and no Menag Day. What does that tell us? It tells us that those cycles emerge later, despite the idea circulated that they were all existent in the beginning. So the other thing so what we need to understand about this is that there's very different approaches to Guru Yoga depending on whether it's Vajrayana, whether it's Dzogchen Semde, whether it's Long Day, or whether it's Menag Day. They're very different. So, and as most of you probably will know, we focus primarily on the Dzogchen Semde. So I will be emphasizing that tradition today, but I will go over um, the basic kind of ideas of each of the approaches, not in a great deal of detail, but just in basic framework to give you a sense of how it works. Now, as I said, the Semde approach is very pared back, simple, non-tantric, and that is slightly confounding because when we think of Guru Yoga, we think of a lot of tantric elements visualization, mantra, accumulation, etc. But I'll explain how those things are not really a part of Semde Guru Yoga um, in a minute. Um, so one of the things I want to lay out, I suppose, at the beginning, there's a lot of texts that talk about Guru Yoga, and they talk about kind of two aspects: how to do it, so the technique, how to do it, and they talk about why we do it. So in terms of technique, that's very different from lineage to lineage. We'll go over that a little bit later. In terms of why, mostly we're told because it works, because it is very fast, because it is profound, because it is the ultimate practice, right? Unfortunately, we are not given a lot of uh, why it works. We're told it works, it's very fast, speeds up your practice, leads to full liberation. They give us some sense, they might give us some talk about guru and disciple becoming one. But that's kind of like the most of the why it works that we get. So because there's a bit of an absence there of why does it work? I want to focus on that a little bit today, tonight, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. I know you're in all very different time zones. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about why it works, um, and also give you a sense of when we understand why it works, how we can focus on the kind of core elements of it. When we don't really know how or why it works, we can fall into a habit of taking the external parts as the important parts. But actually the external parts are the unnecessary parts. They're the parts that are a good support, good place to start, but they're not essential. You can let them go. In fact, you're required to let them go as time, as your progress, as your practice deepens. So, also at the end of today, I'll give a couple of lungs. So I'm going to give the lung for a Anu Yoga, Guru Yoga. Anu Yoga means it's tantric. At the end, from Sarah Kandro, who was a great Dujom Dzogchen master. She um, lived at the turn of the century, passed away in 1959, I believe. Um, and she was a student of one of the sons of Dujom Lingpa, student and consort of one of the sons of Dujom Lingpa, and she's rather extraordinary. And there's a very brief Yeshe Sogyal focused Guru Yoga that she composed. So it's not a terma. It was composed by her. So I'll give it a lung for that at the end. And I'll give a couple of other lungs that I've been asked to give as well. Okay, so the most important thing to get about Guru Yoga is that it's not what we think it is. It's not um, a ritualistic, religious practice. That sounds quite a heretical thing to say. But Guru Yoga is actually a technique that brings us to our natural condition. Because our natural condition is exactly that, our natural condition, innate, complete and perfect from the beginning. It is not a transmission of anything. It is not a learning of anything. It is not the development of anything new. It is not cultivating anything. It is not accumulating anything. So, any of you who have experience with Tibetan Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism, you will have heard about the two accumulations: wisdom and merit, etc., etc., or wisdom and compassion, depending who you're talking to. Um, in Dzogchen, we're not accumulating anything, even those things, because those things are innate to our natural condition. Wisdom and compassion are innate to our natural condition. They don't need to be accumulated. Um, there is no greater, there is nothing more meritorious than abiding in one's natural condition. There's nothing more profound than abiding in one's natural condition. Now, there's nothing religious about that. Religion is about going to an external uh, sacredness or divinity and subjugating oneself to that and getting some kind of blessing, following some kind of ritual. So Dzogchen is really not um, technically religious. Your natural condition is as it is, can't be changed, can't be made better or worse. It abides permanently as it is, complete and perfect. So there's no external supplication that needs to be made. There's no external entity that needs to provide a blessing. It is your natural condition. There's nothing more perfect or sacred than that natural condition, because that natural condition is exactly the same as Dharmakaya. It is Dharmakaya. To put it in a sort of a Zen way, it is Buddha mind. To put it another way, in our nature, we're exactly the same as the Buddha. So there's no external stuff one needs to do to get there. We're already there. What Guru Yoga does is it removes that aspect that doesn't see that. So, as you know, in Dzogchen we talk about two aspects of the mind. It's not a very precise way of saying it, but there's the thinking mind, and then there's awareness. The thinking mind is obviously thoughts, but also feelings, emotions, sensations, physical sensations, reactions, habits, biases, predispositions, all of that. And then there's awareness, which is primordially perfect from the beginning. It is our natural condition and is Dharmakaya, one with the Buddha. So these two aspects, um, the thinking mind arises within awareness, abides within awareness, and then dissolves back into awareness. Everything about the thinking mind is temporary. It by its very nature, is not lasting. Everything about awareness is undying. It has never been born. It will never die. It is vast, boundless, all-encompassing. Everything is encompassed by awareness. Everything. And in the Dzogchen, there's this little phrase, um, everything is awareness. If you want to use the Tibetan word, everything is rigpa. You might have heard that more commonly. But everything is awareness. So we are awareness. The world is awareness. The universe is awareness. The wind is awareness. The warmth on our skin is awareness. Everything is awareness. So it arises, abides, and dissolves back into awareness and is indistinct in some ways from awareness itself. So, given all that, Guru Yoga is not like a religious practice. It's not something we do to achieve something. It's something we do to relax into our natural condition. Therefore, because that's its point, to relax into our natural condition, it needs to be easy. In this milieu we're in, it's almost heretical to say that a practice should be easy, but you cannot enter your natural condition through effort. Effort is in and of itself the thinking mind. It is delusion. It is dualistic. It isn't your conceptual mind, your thinking mind cannot achieve enlightenment. It has not the capacity. It is impermanent. It is dualistic. It is deluded. The thinking mind, you, cannot become enlightened. Awareness is already enlightened, awake, perfect as it is. So the whole point of Guru Yoga is to dissolve the thinking mind. And guess what? Nothing needs to be done for that to happen. It happens by itself. So the Guru Yoga is just helping it along. There's no obstacle to awakening, because everything about the thinking mind, which is the obstacle, is impermanent and passing naturally. So there's no real obstacle here. All the Guru Yoga does is give you a little bit of a push, a little bit of fuel, so that you can relax into that state more easily, more readily, so that the thinking mind will dissolve. Now, I'm hoping I haven't confused you all, but I'll just repeat. The thinking mind cannot become enlightened. The thinking mind is you. You can't become enlightened. Awareness is always already enlightened, always already awake. That's your natural condition. I say you're there, really probably should say our. That is our natural condition, right? So the separate self can't become enlightened, can't become a Buddha. It has to pass away. And that's what it does naturally. Awareness is unborn and undying and vast and encompasses us all. Already enlightened, already perfect, already pristine, already imbued with immeasurable joy, love, compassion, and equanimity or evenness and contentment. I'm laboring this so you can really understand nothing we do with the thinking mind is helpful in this endeavor to become one with our natural condition. And that's what Guru Yoga is, becoming one with our natural condition. Another way they often say is become one with the Guru, right? The Guru, the secret Guru, is our natural condition, primordial, undying awareness. That's the secret Guru. Spoiler alert. So that's the whole point, to allow the thinking mind, the self, to dissolve. The best way to do that is through relaxing, letting go, letting be, and then our natural awareness shines. So the idea of union is a little bit of a trick. It's kind of a tantric way of putting it. And Dzogchen is not tantric. It is not a path of transformation where something has to happen. You don't have to become one with the Guru, because awareness is already a whole unit, if that's a thing. It's already whole and complete. It's already one. We're all already one. The thinking mind, which arises in it, in these multifarious forms, so many forms, all of us, it is a temporary passing thing. And we just need to relax and let that pass. It passes away in each moment, but then, because of our habit, it's reborn. What Guru Yoga does is it creates a space so that that constant reemergence of the self, the thinking mind, slows down. It loses its momentum. So what has always been perfect is simply evident, which is our natural condition, our awareness. Okay, so having said that, so secret guru, I've already told you, is your own primordial awareness, our natural condition, which in various ways of saying that, Buddha nature, true nature of mind, ultimate nature, etc. So I already told you that. But this is the thing. Because of the deeply ingrained habit that we have of believing we're separate beings, we exist, we're people, right? Because of that, you cannot go straight to Secret Guru Yoga. Impossible. Because the momentum, the habit of thinking, I am Pema, these are my thoughts, this is my body, these are the sensations my body is having, these are my perceptions, these are the things I'm hearing, these are the things I'm smelling, these are the things I'm seeing, these are my dreams, these are my emotions, right? The habit of that, of self-identification with everything that rises in awareness, that's what it is. Things rise in awareness just because they can, and we self-identify with them. We think that's us. Because of that deeply ingrained habit, we can't go straight to secret Guru Yoga. It is just impossible because that habit has to be relaxed, you know? So in other traditions, they might say, oh, you have to tame the mind. You have to work with the mind. You have to subdue the negative emotions, all of this kind of language. In Dzogchen, what we would say is that's just going to perpetuate it because that's what we call resistance. That's resistance, resisting how things are and trying to make them something else. Make everything something different. That's resistance. That perpetuates the thinking mind. That's its food. In Dzogchen, we say we need to relax the thinking mind because once it's relaxed, it quietens down. And then what happens naturally? It does what it does naturally. It dissolves. The wind doesn't ever blow forever. It peters out. A wave rises, peaks, crashes, and is gone. This is the nature of the mind as well. It is not permanent. We don't need to do anything about that. It will just go away by itself if we relax. If we put effort into taming the mind, subduing our emotions, la da la da la, it produces more, more, and more, and more, and more. And this is why, in my humble opinion, we have so few enlightened beings on this planet. Because most of the really good-hearted practitioners on the planet are putting a massive amount of effort into subduing their minds, taming their minds, crushing their emotions, doing battle with desire. That just creates more. And so these really good-hearted, well-motivated people, practitioners, are perpetuating their suffering. The great thing about Dzogchen is that it doesn't lead us into that trap. It, from the very beginning, tells us there's another way. I would like to point out at this point, although Dzogchen is very distinct from Vajrayana or Tantra and from Mahayana, it is, and from Theravada, right? It is actually very similar to what we call the early sutras. So a lot of people, when they talk about the early sutras, they think that means Theravada. It doesn't mean that. The Theravada is a school. It evolved early, but it has its own distinct philosophical position, and not always in perfect alignment with those early sutras, the really early sutras that we see. So Dzogchen, however, is fully in accordance with the early sutras. So it's kind of almost like uh, absolute pared back original Buddhism. All right, I've given you something of a view about what Guru Yoga is about. It's about relaxing into our natural condition, and it should be easy. It should be effortless, because any amount of effort is dualistic. If you strive, you have to have something to strive against. Immediately, that's a dualistic setup. If you're trying to transform something, you've got the thing that needs to be transformed and the thing that you want it to transform into. Dualistic. If you are supplicating an external entity, that's dualistic, right? Now, ultimately, Secret Guru Yoga is not dualistic, but we need to begin in a way that harnesses rather than tries to change or suppress our habits, our natural tendencies, not our habitual tendencies rather than our natural ones. And so that's why you need outer Guru Yoga and then inner Guru Yoga before you can practice secret Guru Yoga, because of that habit of being a person compulsively, habitually, and addictively self-identifying with everything that arises in awareness, right? Okay, I'm hoping this is making some sense. All right, so I wanted to, I've got a little couple of pith instructions from Kabje Togden Amtrun, who, as you know, is one of two main gurus in our little sangha. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the approach that Kabje Togden Amtrun taught, which is the Dzogchen Semde approach. Then I am going to talk a little bit about a pith instruction from Dzogchen Rinpoche as well, which is not exactly the same but has resonances. And then we'll have a Q&A. Now, I want to say here, because Guru Yoga is so important, so fundamental, and so profound, generally in our tradition, we would say to people that whatever form of Guru Yoga inspires you, which is the kind of Guru Yoga you'll actually do, rather than the kind of Guru Yoga you think, oh, that's cool, but you'll never do it. There's so many practices we think, oh, that's so cool, but we'll never do it because we're not really inspired to do it. So we want you to do the kind of Guru Yoga that is dear to you, that inspires you, that you will actually do. Because unless you're going to do it, there's absolutely no point. There's no point. It must be done. It has to be practiced. So you do whatever kind of Guru Yoga you want. Just do it. But I'm now going to outline in the Semde what we do. And then I'll talk a little bit about some advice from Dzogchen Rinpoche. So, as I said, in the Semde, Guru Yoga is a strange thing, right? Because normally you'd attribute Guru Yoga with Vajrayana, with Tantra, and you would associate it with visualizations, with mantras, with accumulation. Like how many times have we heard someone say, "Oh, I've done 1,000,000 Vajra Guru mantras," or I remember, like when I was younger, I asked one of my lamas for a particular teaching, and he said, "Oh, well, the prerequisite for that is 10 million Vajra Guru mantras." And I was like, "Okay." Didn't even question it. It's such a thing, to just accumulate stuff. So um, the Semde is opposed to all striving. So it's also not Tantra. So as those of you who've been around a while will know, been around us a while, you'll know this thing called the 10 absences. So the 10 absences are essentially the Dzogchen Semde precepts. And they go through practices that we don't do. That actually, if you're on the Dzogchen path, they are they are I'm not going to say hindrance. They are um, a brake, an anchor. They slow you down. And the 10 absences list things that we, don't. If you're on a Dzogchen path, I'm not saying, like if you're a Vajrayana practitioner, this doesn't apply to you. This is if you're on the Dzogchen path, right? Particularly you're doing Semde. And they are visualizations, deity practices. So any deity practices in the 10 absences, don't do it. Mantras, accumulation, and it singles out accumulation of wisdom and compassion or wisdom and merit. Karmic purification. These are things that the 10 absences say, no, we don't do these things. These are not part of Dzogchen practice, right? So given that, what does Guru Yoga look like in the Semde? If you're not doing visualizations and you're not doing mantras and you're not accumulating anything, what does it look like? It's pared back to its essence. So what is the essence of Guru Yoga? This is a really easy question to answer. It is devotion. Devotion. So devotion is a heart experience. It's not a visualization or a mantra or an accumulation. It's a heartfelt abiding, and it cannot be faked, and it can't be contained in formal practices. So, but as I said, given we can't go straight to secret Guru Yoga because we just won't be able to do it. We're too in the habit of self-identifying with what arises in awareness. So we have to do outer, and that involves a living guru or a guru who is human, but who has gone beyond, right? So in Dzogchen in particular, Guru Yoga is really super important. And I'll just read this little thing from Kajik Togden Amchen. In Dzogchen in particular, trust between the teacher and student is absolutely essential. Without it, transmission cannot occur, and the student's progress may be greatly hindered. So in defining devotion, in the various languages in which Dzogchen is practiced, there's Tibetan, there's Bhutanese, there's Nepalese, there's the original language of Odiyana. All sorts of words existed for devotion. I'm not going to focus on a particular one, but in essence, they all mean the same thing. They all mean love. And in this sense, we're not talking about romantic love, familial love, things that involve attachment, right? But it is love. So in Buddhism, it's most often called loving kindness, but we only call it really loving kindness because we're trying to make it clear that it's not love with attachment, right? But there's love, respect, trust. That's what devotion is. And there's also another component of often use this word yearning, but someone pointed out to me that they felt the word yearning had a negative connotation, which I don't get. But anyway, yearning for awakening, yearning for freedom from suffering. I suppose you could, instead of yearning, you could put passion for awakening or something, or um, a deep wish, a deep wish for awakening and for freedom from suffering. So that's all wrapped up in devotion, love, respect, trust, and this wish for awakening and the wish for freedom from suffering. So, and that all of those elements are very important. The respect, the trust, the love, and the fact that it all happens in this context of yearning for awakening, for freedom from suffering. So this is really important. So I'm going to go through a couple of pith instructions. So I'll read them out and I'll just give you some. They're from Kyabje Dzogchen Amtrön, who gave them to Rigzin Jamyang Temple, who gave them to me. And then I'll talk through this a little bit and then see where we're at in terms of time and having a Q&A and doing the transmissions. So the first pith instruction is, through devotion, the great relaxation occurs naturally and effortlessly. So, before I was talking about Guru Yoga is not about transforming you. You are a fleeting, compound set of processes. It's got nothing to do with awakening. Your natural condition's already awake. So the only way to bring that forward or rest in that is through relaxation. And so through devotion, the great relaxation occurs naturally and effortlessly. There's an interesting point. There's an interesting little side thing here. So in the Semde, the ultimate practices are sky gazing and guru yoga. In other cycles of Dzogchen, so the long day and the Menay day, they have other practices such as Trekche, Turgil, right? Semde doesn't talk about those two things, Trekche, Turgil. And they're often framed as the highest practices in Dzogchen. But in Semde, it's like, no. For us, the highest practices are sky gazing and guru yoga. Now, a really interesting point is one of the ways of translating that word Trekche, like there's a literal etymological translation, which is to cut loose something that's been bound, right? But another way, and the way that a number of my teachers have translated it, is total relaxation. So here that's being pointed to, right? Through devotion, the great relaxation occurs naturally and effortlessly. And there's also like Kyabje Dilga Khyentse Rinpoche, he said in one of his teachings on Guru Yoga that devotion brings about the realizations of Trekche and Togyo naturally. And there's also, and something also Holiness the Dalai Lama said in his Dzogchen teachings in California in 1990 something. He said, once you have been introduced to the natural condition, no other meditative practices are required. So that's the Semde view. These practices of Trekche and Togyo are not required. Once been introduced to one's nature, one simply rests in one's nature. That's it. Nothing else is required. That is the Semde view. And that can only be done through relaxing, through letting things be as they are. All right. Now, little explanation there. So in that pith instruction, through devotion, the great relaxation occurs naturally and effortlessly. Relaxation is defined as relaxation into the natural state of continuous ease. So that's another way of saying relaxing into the natural condition, your natural state, Buddha nature, etc. So this is very simple. Same day is always very simple. It, however, is not something that the thinking mind makes easy. because the thinking mind always wants, the self always wants um, to ornament itself, to make itself fancy, to make itself flashy and special, to make itself knowledgeable, to make itself clever, to make itself wise, to make itself compassionate. The deluded dualistic self is in a constant state of trying to ornament itself with positive qualities. So it is a absolute trap from beginning to end. There's nothing redeemable or redeeming about it. So we have to relax. We can't think ourselves into awakening. We can't ponder ourselves into awakening. We can't debate our way into awakening. We can't study our way into awakening. All of those things are about the thinking mind, which always wants more of that and just loves that. I'm so smart. I'm so clever. I'm so kind. That's what it does all the time. Its constant habit is to try and be seen as special, good, etc., etc. That's what it always wants. So any feeding of that is unhelpful, which is why we can only get there through relaxation. Because guess what? The thinking mind, the self, dislikes relaxation immensely. It really dislikes it because it gives it nothing. It gives it nothing. I'm not talking about spa days. You know, the self loves a spa day because I'm going to be pretty. You know, I'm going to be calm and everyone will think how serene I am, how pretty I am. You know, I'm not talking about that kind of relaxing. True relaxation is to do absolutely nothing and in no way try to intervene in what's happening, to just let everything be as it is and rest. The mind becomes profoundly bored with that and it just quits. It just quits. Anyone who has any creative practice will know that when you're engaged in a repetitive thing, a lot of creative activities are actually very repetitive, doing lots of repetitive things over and over and over again. There's a point at which the thinking mind just goes, I'm out of here, and it turns off. And that's what we call the flow state. Thinking mind turns off, time vanishes, because guess what? Present, past, and future are part of the thinking mind. In your natural condition, there's no past, present, and future. It's timeless, beyond time, undying. So we know that in that flow state, there's no time. The sense of time vanishes, and we're not really there. There's just the task that we're repeating. We've done 10 million times, we're doing it again. The thinking mind hates repetition, which is perhaps the only good thing about accumulation sometimes, because the thinking mind just gets so bored, it just quietens down. But it has no other value really beyond that. All right, so second pith instruction, you must have absolute trust in the outer guru before you can have absolute trust in the inner guru. I've already given you the reason why, but I'll repeat it. You must have absolute trust in the outer guru before you can have absolute trust in the inner guru. The reason is our deep habit of self-identifying with everything that arises in awareness and thinking, we're here, I exist, I am, I think, therefore I am. There is not a more deluded statement in the universe. I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am deluded is what that should be. So, because we have this habitual obsession, addiction to self-identifying with everything that arises, we need something of a dualistic process in the beginning because it's there anyway. It is there anyway. We're not creating it. It's there already. We're not manufacturing anything. That dualistic process is already there. We're just harnessing it because we have to, because it's the only way we can go from A to Z. There's no other way to do it. We have to harness that process and learn through relaxing and through devotion what it is to suspend that, to not be tied to that. So, there are some other reasons why the outer guru yoga is essential first. One is that we are comfortable loving others. If we haven't been abused as children, which many of us have, unfortunately, if we haven't been betrayed by too many romantic partners, many of us have, unfortunately, if we are relatively unscarred by, you know, our parents and the people we've trusted, we are reasonably comfortable with loving others. It is a natural feeling. When we're little itty bitties, we feel great love naturally, just naturally. And we trust naturally. We love and trust naturally. It's just the way we are. It's how we come into the world. Unfortunately, that gets very quickly bruised and damaged by the way the world is and the way samsaric beings are, you know. But if we're somewhat unscathed, we still, and even if we are scarred, you know, we still like love. We still like it. It is a pleasant state to love. I'm not talking about romantic love where you're always, you know, unsure. Do they love me as much as I love them? Do they love me back? Will they always love me? Blah, blah, blah. All that attachment stuff. But love that seeks nothing but to shine on another person or another animal, it's a pleasant state, you know? It's a really pleasant state. There's nothing negative about it. It's a pleasant experience. So because that is a pleasant experience and it's comfortable, it's very useful in Guru Yoga because it's natural to us. We love quite naturally if we haven't been completely scarred and traumatized by our past. You know, we love quite naturally. And when we're little itty bitties, that love doesn't want anything back. It just loves because it loves. We learn to want stuff back. We learn to want love rather than to give love freely. We learn that. But to simply love is a very comfortable place, and we can use that, we can harness that so that we can relax in a state of love. Guess what? We're not stressed. Guess what? We're not uptight. Same as joy. In a state of joy, we're not stressed. We're not uptight. A loving mind, a joyful mind, these are quiet minds. They're relaxed minds. So we can relax through that process. And then our natural condition can shine through because the thinking mind settles down. Now, there's a third thing, which is a little hard to accept for some people. And that's I'll call it blessing, the blessing that comes from an enlightened being. So this is kind of crucial. And it's why we need to be very careful about who we make our guru. So if we choose someone who is not actually awake, who's just interesting and funny and nice and appealing and says things that we like, but they're not awake, there's no blessing. There's no blessing flowing through. So it's not a dead end though, because love in itself is powerful, but that added power of the blessing from an awakened being, it's not there. So it's so, you know, I hesitate to say this, but you can have devotion for a puppy dog, you know, and it will help. It will help you move towards awakening because love in itself relaxes the mind, opens the heart, it helps, you know. But a puppy dog can't provide blessing, you know. The puppy dog can only provide puppy dog stuff, you know. So it's like there's this saying, if you, it's often misunderstood, this saying, if you see the guru as an ordinary person, you receive the blessings of an ordinary person. If you see the guru as a Buddha, you receive the blessings of a Buddha, right? This is slight. This is misunderstood. People think that means, oh, we should see whoever our guru is as a Buddha. It doesn't mean that at all. It means you should choose a guru who's a Buddha. You should not choose a guru as an ordinary person because that's not going to help you. So, but how can we tell? Because we're ordinary deluded beings. There's no way for us to tell. So, unfortunately, we have to trust. That's where trust comes in. And we need to, this is very unsexy, but we need to really take time to observe the teacher before we make our decision. And people don't like that because they're all in such a hurry, you know. Everyone is in such a hurry. But the traditional idea is you observe a teacher for about 12 years and then make your decision. Most of us are profoundly impatient and won't do that. Some of us have been very lucky, profoundly lucky, to have met a teacher and just known in our heart straight away, this is my guru. But that's actually very rare, very, very rare. So we have to be a little bit diligent about this because if we choose the wrong person, it will drastically delay our ability to abide in a natural condition. But a really simple way of checking if a guru, if you want to be impatient, I urge you to take 12 years. But if you want to be impatient, because we all want to be impatient, there's a simple way you can figure this out. Look at the teacher. When they're talking about the Dharma, do they always come back to impermanence, emptiness, Buddha nature, and the toxic nature of emotional states? Are they always coming back to those things? Those are what we call the four Dharma seals. Impermanence, emptiness, Buddha nature, or the fact that liberation is real and possible, and the toxic nature of all emotional states, all compound states. Are they always coming back to that? That's a really good sign that this person might be awake. Another really good sign that they might be awake is that they abide by the foundational ethics of the Dharma. They never, ever harm any sentient being, ever. It is not possible for an awakened being to harm a sentient being, ever. It is not possible. So if someone says to you, that person abused me, I am deeply traumatized by it, etc., they tell you a story. That person, if the story is true, and we always believe the victim, that can't be a Buddha because that person's hurt. No matter what the intention of the person who did it, the so-called guru who did it, they might say, "Oh, it was what are they? Compassionate intention, crazy wisdom, blah 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 blah." If the person on the other side of that feels hurt and is traumatized, that's not a Buddha. That's not an awakened being. A Buddha cannot hurt a sentient being. They cannot. So if someone says they're hurt, and we always believe them, because we know what happens when we don't believe abuse survivors, they get re-abused, then the person who did that to them is not awake. It's very simple. So they never hurt beings. They tell the truth. They aren't addicted to drugs and alcohol. They don't um, profit from the Dharma. They're not rich from the Dharma, and etc. The basic stuff. Those are basic things. If you look at a person and they don't have any of those things, they're drinking all the time, they're taking drugs, they have multiple sexual partners, they there's rumors that they've abused people, they're rich, they've got a Rolex watch on. These are all indications that that person might not be awake. I'm not saying absolutely is not, because I don't know. I am not an awake being myself. So those are the ways you can, if you want to roll the dice and take a risk, you can look to the only way is to look to, are their teachings always rooted in the four Dharma seals, impermanence, emptiness, the poisonous nature of all mental states, and the truth of liberation, or Buddha nature, our Buddha nature, right? Are the teachings always rooted in those things? And then look at their behavior. Do they keep the precepts? This is, if you want to roll the dice, that's the only way to judge, you know? If you don't use those things to judge, to determine, then, it's Russian roulette. And we know what happens with Russian roulette. Inevitably, someone dies. Okay. So in the Dzogchen Semde, because we're not doing this tantric form of Guru Yoga with visualizations and mantra and accumulation, this is what it looks like. So, and again, I just want to remind you what I said at the beginning. You practice the Guru Yoga that calls to you, what sings to your heart, what inspires you that you will actually do. That's the Guru Yoga you do. So if what I say here, you think, meh, meh, then it's not for you. It's not for you. And I have no problem with that. You might want to do tantric Guru Yoga. You might want to do a, I don't know, like a kind of, what do you call it? Uh, Ritual form of offering, like from the Mahayana tradition or something like that. Whatever sings to you, you do that. I'm just telling you what we in the Dzogchen Semde do. All right. So this is the way we recommend practicing Guru Yoga. This phrase, Dzogchen Semde, another way of saying is the lineage of direct experience. So for those with no guru, so if you have not met a human being who is your teacher, how do they become your teacher? You've asked them and they've agreed. Then what we do is we recite a simple phrase, which is Lama, be with me now. We recite it regularly. We're not accumulating it though. So I'll just use myself as an example. I go for 3 or 4 walks every day, short walks that are kind of like walking meditation walks. And when I leave the house, I look up at the sky, because sky gazing is a thing for us, and I recite or say with some real feeling, Lama, be with me now. And then I do my walking meditation. And then I might be inspired 5 minutes in to say it again. Lama, be with me now. So, and it depends on the day. I might say it 5 times in my walk. I might say it just once. I might say it quite a lot. It might just keep coming up. You follow your heart and but you're not accumulating. You're not going, I'm going to do 21. I'm going to do a mala of them. I have a mala here, but I don't use it to accumulate. I use it as a tactile grounding. In Zen, they say we just play with the mala. I use it as a tactile grounding thing, you know. It is a reminder of my guru's presence. So that's what we do. Lama, be with me now. And you say it regularly. And if you do this, the promise of this Semde practice. Oh, before we move on, just, this word Lama. This is it's a Himalayan Tibetan word that is translated from it's a Himalayan word or Tibetan word for guru. Now, I want to really point this out. Lama isn't a male gendered word. The word lah means few things. Heavy with perfection, I think you could say, or some people say heavy with or endowed with pristine qualities, good qualities. But La actually also means the peak of a mountain. So pinnacle, ultimate, highest, you know? So it means, most complete, perfect, highest, endowed with perfection. La, you know? And then Ma is feminine. And it points to emptiness. Dharmakaya, mind. Emptiness, Dharmakaya, mind, the same thing. So Lama, technically female word, Lama, female, but it points to the Dharmakaya mind of any awakened being. Also points to one's own natural condition, which is emptiness, which is Dharmakaya, which is perfection. That lofty peak, pinnacle, you know? So Lama is not a gendered word. You're not calling on some dude. It's any awakened being, all awakened beings, in fact. And it is also calling to one's own nature. Lama, be with me now. But as I said, we start outer guru. So we are sort of thinking of the human teacher, you know. And if you do this, Lama, be with me now, and you don't currently have a guru, the promise is in this teaching is that your guru, the human being, male, female, non-binary, trans, whatever form they may take, will enter your life and give you teachings. So if you do that, they will come. That's the promise. And then once you have that human guru in your life, remember they can be living or gone beyond. So it doesn't mean a person will knock on your door. It means you'll start to know who the teacher is. They might be living. They might have gone beyond. And you might just start to know, oh, this Lama's image is popping up in my head a lot. I'm encountering their teachings all over the place. When I read their teachings, I feel really moved. When I see their image, I feel really moved, because your guru, the guru is gone beyond. Even if they're currently in a body, time, space, matter, location, these things do not matter. Past, present, and future doesn't matter. With the guru, one of my gurus said to me once, with the guru, there's no coming and going. There's no parting. So you're never alone, whether or not they're in a human body now. All right. So I'll just read this from The outer guru may be alive or dead, but they must be revealed in one's heart before guru yoga truly commences. So you need to know through feeling, a heart awareness, oh, this is the person who I can open my heart to, who I can trust, who I can love safely. And I'm not talking about romantic love or familial love or even, friendship type love. It's a whole different ball game, which is why I have a different word for it, devotion. Who I can love, who I can respect, who I can trust. You will have that feeling, and then you can really start practicing. So those who already have an outer guru, so can also recite Lama be with me now whilst bringing their beloved guru to mind. Now, you can bring your guru to mind, but remember, this is Semde. So we're not visualizing, because that's a dualistic sort of thing. You're creating something out there, that you hope will give you something, you know. But it's just if they come to mind, that's fine. For me, when I say Lama be with me now, my guru's face immediately appears, immediately. And I don't do that. It just happens. All right. Okay. So it might happen, it might not. But it's okay. So I'm just going to read this out slowly so we can get this all in our head. So this is the way we recommend practicing Guru Yoga in the Dzogchen lineage of direct experience. For those with no guru, reciting Lama be with me now regularly will help to reveal the outer guru to them and allow them to formally commence the path of devotion. For those with no outer guru, the path of devotion cannot commence. The outer guru may be alive or dead, but they must be revealed in one's heart before Guru Yoga truly commences. Those with an outer guru can also recite Lama, be with me now, whilst bringing their beloved guru to mind in whichever way works best for them. You can use pictures, videos, stories, or whatever fires your devotion. If the Lama comes to mind naturally and effortlessly when reciting, then this is fine, but actively visualizing them is unnecessary. The path of devotion is gentle and kind. We do not force the mind to adopt unnatural things. This is effortless Guru Yoga, as effortless as possible, as kind and gentle as possible. Lama, be with me now, is yet again invoked by the inner Guru Yoga practitioner as they are instructed to relinquish the name and form of the outer Guru in preparation for the great and final letting go, the great completion. So, I'll just keep reading, but then I'll come back to that point. So, Lama with me now is used continuously in this lineage's path through outer, inner, and secret Guru Yoga. Just to reiterate, the outer Guru is essential, absolutely essential, particularly in Dzogchen practice. Whether they are living or dead makes no difference. We must have someone to relinquish ourselves to, and that is to the most trusted Guru, our true Dharma friend in the ultimate sense. This is the Dzogchen path of direct experience, and this is our lineage. So, I just want to come back to this point here. Lama be with me now is yet again invoked by the inner Guru Yoga practitioner as they are instructed to relinquish the name and form of the outer Guru in preparation for the great and final letting go, the great completion. So, in other traditions, you will have heard this breakdown, which I'll go over. Outer Guru Yoga is the human Guru, also called Nirmanakaya Guru. Inner Guru Yoga is the practice itself, devotion itself, or the Sambhogakaya Guru. So that in Tantra, that's about visualizations. Sambhogakaya is a visualization. And the secret Guru Yoga is resting in your own primordial awareness or natural condition itself, which is the Dharmakaya. So that's a traditional sort of structure you might have seen around the place. But that's the tantric structure of outer, inner, and secret Guru Yoga. For us, this is a little different, right? So the inner Guru Yoga is when you're really trying to let go of everything form. So and the secret Guru Yoga is when that's done, you know. So in the inner Guru Yoga, you're trying not, well, it should happen naturally, really, rather than trying. In the inner Guru Yoga, you are letting go of the Guru's form. So you have a Guru you love, but we can become quite dependent on them, quite attached to them, and that is not freeing. So at some point, we need to let go of the Guru's form. You know, the outer Guru has to be let go of, and we need to move to the inner Guru. And any outer Guru who doesn't encourage that, any human teacher who doesn't encourage that, is doing you a disservice. So you always want to be, you know, you have the Guru you love, respect, and trust them, but ultimately you need to let that go. You need to let their form go. So you know, we often in Dharma circles you have people saying, you know, oh, my Guru is the, and then they will extol you with their great qualities. I'm not saying that qualities aren't there, that they're not great qualities and such, but that is a kind of form of attachment, you know. Eventually we have to let that go so that we're just now focusing on the awareness aspect of the Guru, which is not external to us. So Yeah, and I said that that will happen naturally, and or sometimes the living guru will tell you now is the time to let go of the form. So we'll have a break here and then we'll come back for Q&A. I just want to repeat. In the tantric model, right, you have outer guru, which is an Umanakaya, their physical body and form. Inner guru, Sambhogakaya, that's when you're visualizing them and you're doing mantra and stuff in Tantra. And then you have the secret guru, which is the Dharmakaya, which is primordial awareness or the natural condition ourself, where that's you're just resting in that. And that's your guru yoga. And that's the true guru, actually. Your own primordial awareness is the true guru. But in this tradition, the same day tradition, it's really simplified. You kind of start with inner guru yoga right from the beginning, but your teacher's face might pop up, and you might need that at first. But in time, the teacher's face will not pop up as much, and you're left with instead being in that state of awareness, you know? So Guru Yoga is not a technique that you should consider uh, is permanent. At some point, you will let it go. When we're able to rest in our natural condition, it's no longer needed, right? So at some point, it's let go. But for most of us, um, it becomes also a form of gratitude, a form of showing gratitude. So it changes from a technique to help us rest in our natural condition to being a way of showing gratitude for the teachers who helped us to rest in our natural condition. All right. So I'm gonna let's have a break, come back, and I think I'll do the long before we do the Q&A or the other way around. I'm not sure. But I'll pause recording. Let's come back in say 5 minutes.